final talk before coffee. My name is Tom Buurke. I'm an assistant professor at the University Medical Center in Groningen and a research fellow at KU Leuven. And in my work I use experiments and simulations to understand human walking with a special focus on neurological populations. Today I want to talk about a study I did together with Han Houtdijk. It was his original idea, so if you don't like the idea, email him. And it's about very slow walking instead of faster walking. Very often in our work we use simple models to describe gait behavior, and we can use spring mass models for running, inverted pendulum model for walking, or for standing. But today I want to focus on what happens in between walking at a nominal speed and standing still. So we're going to look at very slow walking. Because when studying a falling inverted pendulum, we often do that in able-bodied adults at a speed of about 1.4 meters per second. It's the speed that you and I use when we all walk to the bus, maybe a bit slower today. However, our patients and elderly definitely don't walk at this speed. To give you an idea, people post-stroke sometimes walk at 0.3 meters per second, which is really a lot slower. And we wanted to understand whether we can still describe this gait behavior as a falling inverted pendulum when people walk this slow. Because the models and knowledge we derive from able-bodied adults, we always apply that to understand clinical gait behavior. So I think we need to understand this better. Now yesterday evening I had a discussion with Sjoerd, Daniel and Maarten about hypotheses in this kind of explorative research. We decided that this kind of research still needs a hypothesis. So I asked our modern-day superhero to come up with one. Do with it what you will. ChatGPT thinks it's possible to model this gait behavior as a falling inverted pendulum. To do this study we included 15 able-bodied adults. We let them walk on our treadmill at speeds ranging from 0.1 to 1.4 meters per second, and each bout lasted 2 minutes, and we randomized the order. We used our force plates to calculate a bunch of parameters, and we used breath-by-breath indirect calorimetry to measure the energy consumption during walking. And we have a nice Bavarian projection on the screen to get people some optic flow even while walking at these very low speeds. We asked our participants to keep a dynamic walking motion, so to prevent them from standing still, waiting until they get to the end of the treadmill and making another step. So there was one instruction there. And we're going to look at a bunch of parameters, especially from temporal stepping parameters into stability and energy efficiency. So spatially nothing really amazing happened. So step length changed linearly with gait speed and step width stayed about the same. But the interesting stuff happens when you look at the temporal gait parameters, because people spend more time in swing as they walk slower, which makes sense, but also in double support. And more notably, if you look at the ratio between double support time and swing time, when people start walking very slowly, they start spending more time in double support than in single support, which definitely is different from walking at higher speeds. And we're going to try and explain that based on stability and energy efficiency. So we looked at margins of stability for this, and in the AP direction, once again, it's quite predictable behavior. But in the medial lateral margin of stability, we saw something interesting. Because while the medial lateral margin of stability increases with speed, if you go too slow, there seems to be some kind of floor effect and a very clear trend break. So walking more in double support might serve to prevent the medial lateral margin of stability becoming negative, because the longer you spend in single stance, the lower your medial lateral margin of stability becomes. We looked further into this by looking at single participant center of mass and center of pressure trajectories to see what was going on there. And this is what you would normally expect when you look at medial lateral center of mass motion. It's a nice smooth motion. But in the very slow walking, we saw things like this. So there's a bit of a bump. When people stand in double support, they seem to balance their center of mass a bit before they move on to single support again. And a similar thing happened in center of pressure data. However, if you average this on group level, you don't see this anymore. So it's averaged away. It's something we have to think about when further analyzing this data. Now finally, from an energy perspective, we looked at the metabolic energy cost of walking. This is what you would expect, and if we go higher, the energy cost would probably go up again, given the U-shaped curve that you often see here. And walking slowly is very inefficient, but we already knew that. But if we look at the metabolic powers and not normalize the gait speed, we see that there's a linear relationship with speed. And if we extrapolate that to the zero line, And we have the standing still energy consumption in the red circle. We see that it's still a little bit higher than standing still, but nothing weird there. So why are we looking at this? Well, to provide you an alternative, I'd like to think about the transition from walking to running. So when we start walking faster, at some point we cross the running for energy efficiency. And what could happen here is that if you would remain walking in a single supported gait, that it would be less efficient. So we might be switching to a double supported gait for efficiency, which would look something like this as well, so it would get even worse. We'll have to further study that though. So in conclusion, we see an increase in the percentage of the gait cycle spent in double support when you start walking very slowly. This might be to safeguard stability, might be for efficiency, could be both. And to dive in there further, we're thinking about imposing a duty factor while walking at these very slow speeds to force people to spend more time in single support. And that's it.
We have 2 minutes for questions, and then a short announcement from them.
I'm wondering what happens with the trends if you put normalized speed rather than actual speed, so for like different leg lengths. Like I'm pretty aware that my mom, who's like a couple of 27 years shorter than me, her comfortable walking speed is way lower than mine.
Yeah.
So like how does those trends look for normalized speed, like using the crowd number or something like that?
I'm not sure if the trends would change. We're not looking at an individual optimum here. If you look at the individual data, it differs for which person you see this trend rate. So for some it's 0.3, 0.4, so it would explain that difference. But still it's roughly around the same.
Okay.
And we used all very tall Dutch students, so the difference in leg length wasn't that big.
So is your hypothesis met or not?
Sorry?
Was your hypothesis met or was it not met?
Well, I think it depends on how you model your inverted pendulum. But if it doesn't have double support, I don't think it would be valid.
Do you think there's more variability in the way people walk at slower speeds?
Yes.
Perhaps because we're just not experienced at it.
I'm not sure if it has to do with experience, but yes, I think there's way more variability.
I was surprised to see the step width didn't change, they got slower.
Yeah.
Because when I've seen pathologic populations, they definitely have wider steps. Do you think
Yeah.
that would have any difference if you tried to translate over why the stroke people are?
Yeah, so there might be a very small effect there. I'm going very quickly on this, I'm trying. So there might be something going on here. The step width is a bit difficult. It was a split belt treadmill, and we know some research students assured it that it might affect step width because of the gap. So yeah, it can be too conclusive on that.
Jim? Andre?
Like at lower speeds, the gait model from Hartmut with compliant leg, like bipolar slip model, predicts also force patterns which have more than 2 humps. Did you also observe that, like 3 hump force patterns?
So you mean the ground reaction force?
Yes, the ground reaction forces.
Yeah, I should have put it in there. Wait, no, come to me after. Yeah, I have them. They go from, so if you look at vertical force, you have this biphasic. At very slow, it goes to 1. So you see 1 bump actually.
Only 1 bump.
Yeah, yeah.
Andy?
Did you look at or think about looking at the relative position of center of mass and center of pressure to see whether it seems to me it's conceivable that the basic balance is regulating the center of pressure position, and that might stay constant or only smoothly varying when you go from standing still to slow walking, or might be. I'm wondering, if you think of the balance strategy as just moving around the center of pressure,
Yeah.
does that change as you change from long double support to short double support on the one side, or double support to standing still on the other hand?
Yeah, so given the figures that I had here, I think it would. I think
It
the
would.
challenging part is how you're going to quantify that somehow.
No, it would. Is it possible that the balance strategy is the same,
Yeah.
or does it change?
Yeah, my hypothesis is that it changes a bit because you're standing on two legs for a long period.
But it could be that you're just regulating center of pressure, and one way to do it is using two legs, another is with ankle torques.
Like that could be.
One's by stepping, it could all be the same,
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah, but how would you go about analyzing that?
You could just look at the diagrams and just see
Yeah.
if they look different to start with.
Right, okay, yeah.
Got that?
How similar are slow motions of healthy, big, tall, dead students to elderly people?
Yeah.
Because
No.
that's what you wanted to study.
No, so I don't think that comparison goes up. So this is partly inspired by the work Amy Wood did before, and she also said we want to provide some norm data to see which of the effects are due to walking slowly and which of the effects are due to pathology. So if you have a person post-stroke walking at 0.3 meters per second, this is going to be a very effective person, and there's all sorts of things going on which you do not see in healthy adults. So this will help you distinguish what's due to speed and what's due to pathology.
Yeah, but I mean, even at the same speed, there's very different ways of walking also, how to split moving.
Yeah, we kind of limited that by instructing people to keep moving, because otherwise another strategy to do it would be to step to the front of the treadmill at 0.1 meters per second. It's going to take a long time to get to the back and then take another step. And we didn't want them to do that. So if you want to look at strategies, you need a different experiment, I think. Yeah.
A quick announcement. Thank you very much, Tom.